Right, everybody, welcome to what's this called? 10 Reasons Why, week 3.
No, it's not.
What week
week
is it?
2.
It's week 2.
Week 2.
Do you want
One rehearsal.
it feels like week 3
Okay.
when you're doing this podcasting malarkey, isn't it? It's mad. So I think this one's going to be really interesting because if you've been around church for any period of time at all, we're talking about purpose, the whole thing of purpose, and I think when it comes to Christianese and it comes to like things that tie people up, when it comes to being a Christian, like there's a few things, but purpose is definitely one of them. I remember when we were kids and like particularly in charismatic churches, not that I'm knocking charismatics, but what used to happen was it was always about like finding God's will for your life. Do you know what I mean? It was like, what's God's will for your life? And like with most teenagers, they get angsty about everything. But I just remember like the Christian angsty way of dealing with like that was not, sort of ripping your t-shirts and standing outside the city hall with your, like a goth. It was like, what's God's will for my life? Like, what's my purpose? What's it all about anyway? And all that stuff. And we used to, it was ridiculous, actually.
I love
It's ridiculous.
the stand-up if you're under 25, because that was brilliant. When I remember when we were in church, it was great when you were under 25.
You only had purpose if you were 25.
You're the next generation.
The next generation of, yes, history makers.
Great. And then you get to 26 and you're like, I've blown it.
Well, do you know, I used to pretend things. When I was 28, I used to stand up and go, nobody's going to notice. Do you know, they just stand up anyway. They go, because God has passed you by. It's like the only people with purpose are the young people. And then the young people didn't have a clue what they were doing anyway. It's like, oh, God, who am I going to marry? Like, listed, what am I going to do for a job? Yes. Where am I going to live? Who am I going to marry? And should I give it all up? And
move to China.
Move to China or Newton Ards. Some are horrible like that. India was always a favourite back in our place. And it was like, wherever you hated the most, that was your purpose. So your purpose was always like, if you really hate something, God's calling you into that. Right? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's going to be horrific for you because that must be your purpose. And I don't know. I've just found it like the whole way through my experience at church, purpose has just been this thing of I should really know this clearer than what I do, but I actually don't. Mm-hmm. It's dead easy, isn't it? Just to go, oh, my purpose is. And actually, if I'm honest, I'm always really suspicious of people who go, I've got a really clear sense of
God's purpose for my life.
God's purpose for my life, like super clear. Like I've never had a doubt.
Yeah,
never had a moment where.
Because to be honest, I think it's that sense of expand every day, and actually God doesn't want to give you this blueprint of at age 18 you will be doing this. By 21 you will be here, because then the reality is we wouldn't actually bother with God anymore because we'd just be like, happy days. I know what I'm doing. Thanks very much, God. I'm away. I'll sort it out now. Whereas actually we're all worried about where we're going and the end goal, but actually God's interested in the day by day. I'll actually reveal this to you one step at a time. Yeah. A bit like recently when we had a journey in the caravan. This was the most disastrous journey ever when we were trying to leave Bushmills and we were going to go to Glenariff in the caravan.
Put it in the sat-nav.
And we put it in the sat-nav. I was like, bit of a downer at that stage now because I've had some bad sat-nav moments before and told you, to go on certain routes. I just let you go with your decision.
But listen, like any man listening to this will know, we know better than the sat-nav.
No, absolutely.
Sat-nav is for guidance only.
So we went in the caravan, in the sat-nav, and we did, how many was it? About 20 mile journey with like 25 different sets of directions. Every time we went for a mile, it was like, and then turn left. And then turn right.
And the roads got smaller and smaller.
Yes.
So it was like
and we realised we couldn't turn the caravan around, so it was just like, if anyone's coming in the other way,
we're abandoned. I actually said to you, if anyone comes the other way, I'm just abandoning this. Yes. I'm literally getting out, just locking it up and going, here, mate, have the keys, on you go, because there's no way I'm turning this thing.
And it was just an absolute nightmare, but it was that sense of we couldn't know what was coming next.
Aye.
And every time we turned a corner, we were like, oh, please be more than a mile, because we wanted just to see like 10 more miles and you'll be there. Yeah. But it was literally like 800 yards and then another turn.
I know.
And I think that's kind of what it can be like with purpose. We want you're going for 50 miles and then you just take one turn, and then that'll be the next 5 years, and then there'll be another little turn.
Yeah.
And it's all really, really simple, and God's just laid it all out for you. But actually, God's going, just trust me today.
Yeah.
And look at what I'm doing here. And then like in another few weeks or another few months, because he wants us to be leaning into him. He wants to speak clearly into our lives, and he just wants to commune with us. And I think that's the whole sense of purpose. It's not this end goal. It's actually day by day become more like me. Find out how much I love you. Find out how much I think about you all the time, and discover with me. Otherwise, it's actually, God, we just want this download. You know, fine, happy days, God, that's great, I'm away.
Yeah, I think for me, like even like when we were doing this particular session, we were trying to look at, I mean, like is even the world is kind of wrapped up in purpose. You know, if you go onto YouTube for anything more than 5 minutes, you come across these sort of mad motivational videos.
Yeah.
You know, kind of Tony Robbins-esque. You know, you were born for this moment, and pumpy music, and you know, crowds full of people. And you know, you can buy the book. We should do a book. You know, here's our book to find your purpose, because people are suckers for it. I think what it tells us is that there's some, you know, this thing of it being really inbuilt in this. Like, despite the fact it's hard, despite the fact that I don't think the church has done a particularly brilliant job, and we'll talk about that, because I do want to talk about that, to go, like, it's super important. It's part of God's design in our lives, but it's actually been made into something quite mysterious. And in making it quite mysterious, it's actually made it more difficult than what it should be. And so, and I suppose that's what we're trying to talk about, isn't it? Is to go, is it really that hard? How do you know? Why would you care anyway? It's like, can you just live without purpose? Like, and would your life be materially different anyway? Sometimes I think that. I think, you know, if I was just doing what I did without any sense of direction, like, would it be massively different? I mean, are you even allowed to ask those questions out loud? I think most people are probably thinking I'm getting on all right. You know, why would I need some big sense of purpose in my life? So I suppose when we were talking about it, we went, it's like, this is the reason. What is it anyway? How do you define it? The reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. I suppose when you put it that way, I do start to think, well, actually, that's why it matters to everyone. You know, it's like, at some point, we're going to have to figure out what it's all about. And whether you're a believer or you're not a believer, the truth of it is we all ask the same questions, like at some point. You can bury yourself in busyness, right? And people do that, or bury themselves in tons of stuff to keep themselves distracted, right? And there's a million ways that we can distract ourselves with stuff. But at the end of the day, you know, I suppose when you look at yourself in the eye, you put your head in the pillow, whatever way you want to think about it, you've got to ask that question, what's it all about?
I think it's that sense of something outside of yourself. So I think lots of people can busy themselves, like you say, with I'll reach this goal, then I'll reach that goal next. Yeah. And it's maybe through education and then getting somewhere on the career ladder and all of those different things and accomplishments that we can sort of strive after. But it always comes to the sense of there has to be something more than just me.
Yeah. Like, why do I get up in the morning?
Yes.
Right?
Why do you get up? Because I can't say, get
up and get at it, son. And but sometimes, but it is that thing for all of us, isn't it, to go, like, despite the fact that it's been made more difficult, I think there's something that our purpose motivates us. Like, at the end of the day, there's something. So some people just are motivated by the fact that they've got to go to work to earn money, to put, you know, bread on the table, keep a roof over their heads. That's a fair enough motivation, but it can't be your purpose, right? Because, you know, what happens if any of those things change, you know? And so there's something that's motivating us. And I suppose what we want, you know, discover is actually find God in it, because our purpose has to come from Him. It can't come from us. Yeah. The world goes, find your purpose in yourself. And I go, really? Like, literally depending on any day, like, that's difficult. You know, I do a wee bit of LinkedIn, and I'm very bad at social media generally, but there's all these people on LinkedIn, and you know, I get up at 5 a.m. and eat cardboard for an hour, and then meditate, and then wash poor people, and then go and do emails, and then I go back and meditate, and by 8:30 they've done like their day's work, and this is how I succeed, and it actually makes me want to hurt myself listening to it, because you go, that can't be it. That kind of level of self-discipline, and it's nonsense. There has to be something more to it. So, like, let me ask you a question, right? We've had quite a journey, because doing church, right? there must have been some motivation in you, right? Because people maybe don't get the opportunity to ask us this, but how have you found purpose? Make it that thing of the central thing that motivates you, obviously around church as an example, which is what we do. What difference did it make to you? Why didn't you not give up years ago and go, stuff this? There must have been purpose, must have been a part of that. Yeah. Either that or you're just a bit more crazy. Well, we know. But you know what I mean?
Just don't give up.
Just don't give up. Just keep going. Like the Duracell bunny, right? But well, what was it? What did you find in yourself that purpose gave you?
I think it's that sense of, like I said just now, that it's got to be about more than just you. So I think it's like recognizing when you've encountered God, when you're starting to see what he's doing in your lives, when you realize, Jesus, you've made me a completely new person. And, coming out of a life where at times you were struggling with things, you felt worried and anxious about a lot of things, particularly for me as a teenager. I remember getting really anxious over schoolwork. I was the girly swat. I was the one who tried and really was very driven, strived over things.
You got anxious over schoolwork?
I got anxious over schoolwork. That's something you can relate with. I know there's a lot of empathy there.
I used to sweat it too, honestly. I feel that.
I know a lot of, girls understand this, some guys too, but that sense of you're putting, you're really trying at things, but it's what is all that for? I think I got to the stage of going, well, what is all that about? Because you get a great mark, but then if you don't get the same one next time, you feel disappointed in yourself. That perfectionism thing, I think, was something that I would have struggled with. I think actually when you realize in Jesus you're just loved for who you are, not what you do. So suddenly purpose, it's not that you're doing it for God, but that you're doing it with God. And for me, I think that sense as I journeyed on my Christian walk, because I think early on I had this sense of purpose, and it was like, God, you love me and you want me to tell other people about you. And sometimes even in that we can be driven. But I think probably the thing of co-laboring with Christ as I've journeyed on in my Christian walk, realizing actually, God, it's the privilege that I get to do this with you. I'm not doing it for you in the sense that I'm trying to earn approval or acceptance from you, but actually I get to be part of what brings you life. Because actually, those times, I love the verse when Jesus was, his disciples had gone into, I can't remember the village, and he'd met with a Samaritan woman. They'd gone to get food and they came back. And he said, I have food that you don't know about. And it was because he was fed by feeding others with the word of God, with truth, with life. And when he gave life to others, that was life within him. And that for me, that's how I realized when I give myself to other people, when I care for others, when I tell people about God, when I invest in doing things like this, then actually it brings me life. So
it was more satisfaction?
Yeah.
So purpose gave you more satisfaction, more fulfillment. What about when, thinking about why it would matter, if somebody's listening to this, going to go, actually, it can be quite hard, but let's figure out, why it matters to you. So bigger satisfaction, bigger sense of what you do matter and counting towards something else. So did that motivate you more? That was also part of it. What about when things got tough? Because we've had a few ups and downs, a few roundabouts to go around, right? Did that, in terms of your own resilience, your ability to sort of bounce back, get back into shape after a disappointment, but would you put any of that down to purpose, or just hard-headedness, or a grit, or what?
I think that's why we need the Word of God, because I think unless you saw all what I've always gone back to is all the different Bible characters that have actually endured when things didn't go well. Because if you think about it, like we've looked during the Bible study that we've been doing at the life of David, and we looked at how he was called at a young age. He was the one that was chosen. All the older brothers passed over, and it's this young kid that's the one that's called, and he's anointed to be king. And you think, happy days, you've been told this, it's not what you're expecting. God set you apart. And yet everything then in his life seems to go in a completely opposite direction. Obviously he fights Goliath, happy days, he's promoted, he's made, reporting in the army. But then time after time after time, everything starts to go wrong for him, and he flees. He has the king pursuing him. Even his own mighty men turn on him at one stage. So it's like, you start to, if you didn't have those examples in scripture to help you, you would start to doubt the things that you feel that God's called you to. Because for me, I think early in my Christian walk, I sort of felt I had an opportunity to minister with kids. That was something that I was like, this is something that's in my heart, something I really enjoy. I think this is what God's asking me to do. And then that kind of grew and developed. And then, we realized we could minister with people and, older people, and we ended up doing church. And yet then lots of things came in that started to make you think, maybe I'm not that good at this, or maybe it's still going wrong, and maybe I heard you wrong, God. And I think unless you have examples in the Word, unless you sort of rely on that, then you would just give up. You would just question yourself. You'd think, what's the point?
So what you're saying, that actually drawn from the Bible, drawn from Scripture, was a way of you going, my story's maybe not so different to them, and going, if they could do it, or what was it about them? What was it about David that kept them going? Because every single one of them, like David, was he was a man like, well, I was going to say a man like you and me, a man like me, not like you, and but go on, he's normal. He's absolutely normal. He was a normal person who had sort of captured something about God. And if we can draw the same way from those examples, then it should help us, right? So particularly around motivation. And yeah, I suppose that starts to make sense, to go like, there's a real life application for having a sense of who you are and drawing that from the right place. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because I think what I find, it's like, if you don't have something that gets you up in the morning to go, like I've dealt with loads of people who have money, right, good education and all the rest of it, and it's never enough. Like, it doesn't matter, even people who are successful in business, it's never enough. You inevitably have a conversation with those people which goes something like, at some point, what's this about anyway? Or, that they actually suffer from a lack of motivation at times. I would see that people generally, even as you get older, go in, like, you can bury yourself in your 20s, like, because you're going to change the world. Ooh, this generation up to 25, not after that. After 25, you're on the scrap heap, the Christian scrap heap. Then in your 30s, you kind of get married and kids and things settle and da-da-da. 40s, you're just, I don't know, doing whatever. But the trajectory, I think, as you get older, is to go, that sense of what's this all about becomes more important. Money becomes less important. Time becomes important. And that feeling of being lost or directionless becomes much more acute for people. And I think people make, when I have felt under pressure and had a lack of purpose, you make silly decisions. It's like in that moment where you go, I don't have like a North Star guy that I'm pointing towards. You'll make short-term decisions based on how you're feeling. Like, I mean, like, full disclosure, how many times have I said to you, typically on a Monday, I hate leading this church, I want to get out of it?
Twice, maybe.
Twice
a week.
Twice a week, right. Yeah, okay. So, and then you go, don't be silly, it's just emotion. Yeah. Right? And so the thing of calling and purpose is to go, part of who I am is, for this time anyway, is just to stick in to get something established in Belfast, which is about the grace of God, right? Yeah. About the full gospel, about not being embarrassed about that. And if I take that out, then there's no backstop, I feel like. And so sometimes if people think, why did I make decisions? Why did I make that decision? Or why did I decide to do it? It's because sometimes there's no greater purpose. So you make short-term decisions based on what feels good, or, I suppose that overall there's loads of negative emotions and a lot of consequences, like people tell you get more stressed, you're more anxious and all that kind of stuff. So, like, very quickly, like, where do you start to find it? I for sure, what we, one of the things that we try to talk about here is that your accomplishments in and of themselves don't define you, because that's all transient, right? It's like the world will only point at your education, your achievements, your experience, your bank balance, your assets, your whatever. That's the only thing that it can point to. But I know when it comes to God, and it comes to faith, it has to be absolutely about who God says we are. So your purpose isn't. But here's the thing, and this is what I think we've missed, even in the church. We have forgotten that it's about purpose. For me, is about going, like, first of all, there's two kinds. There's your general purpose, and then there's your specific purpose. But we fall into the trap of the world. That's what cracks me up about this. We don't we kind of go, I am who he says I am. We'll sing the Hillsong song and all that kind of stuff. But then we get straight to,
being very specific.
Well, what do I do?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like people rush past the who am I to get to the this is what I do. And frankly, in our experience, that has caused havoc in the church, because you're dealing with people who just, want to find it's right because it's in us. But whenever you're not happy with the purpose that God has called you, like as a son and as a daughter first, who Jesus says I am first, and you rush to ministry or you rush to what you're doing, you end up getting fed up with normally the leader, people around you, with God and with the church, because it's not enough. What we do is never enough. It's got to be who we are first. It's not right. I think.
Well, I think for me, I've seen a lot of people overcomplicate things over the years, like we're saying, and I think part of it is a sense of what you really enjoy. God has created you uniquely. It says how He's knit us together in our mother's wombs. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. It's like He's put a lot into us, and each one of us He's made unique. So there's something that just lights you up that doesn't light up the person next to you. And so God has put that in you. There's God-given gifts and abilities. So it is about exploring those things, but they're not overcomplicated. Like even for us, I know a number of years ago we felt it was like, we should do something in the business world. We felt that was part of our calling as well. And probably for about a year, we were bouncing around ideas. And then I remember saying to you, Andrew, what is your gift? Your gift is to teach people. And you can teach people in church the Word of God, and you can teach people outside of church about how to lead and how to develop themselves. So, I mean, we've had a number of friends who we've kind of spoken into their lives going, what is it that you love? What is it that you enjoy? Trust that God will open doors for you in those areas. But it's like, it's actually...
But you not think, though, I get that. Do you not think there's a danger there, though? What we're doing is we're setting people up for just do what you like. Do you know what I mean? It's like your purpose is not just what makes you feel good and what you like. If you think about it in any, like, would we say that to people in any other area of their life? Like, can you imagine parents, right? Kids, you get a newborn and you realise, holy smokes, there's a whole lot of this. Or when kids are growing and you kind of go, actually, I don't really want to have to do nappies all the time. And I don't want to have to do the shopping. And, do we kind of do the Christian equivalent of going, like, you'd never say to those parents, what I mean is you'd never say to those parents, I will just see the cuddle times and the bed times and, like, do that. Everything else, don't worry about it. It's not your calling. But do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I think that thing of general, like, purpose is general first. It's like, you're called to be part of the church, right? Don't kid yourself that your purpose sits outside of the church. It doesn't, right? So if you're talking straight to go, like, where would you start with people? How do you help them? Like, if somebody's finding their purpose, I'm just increasingly nervous. Like, because when you think about how many people have we had come to us and go, my ministry is, I'm called to. Like, for me, it's always, I really feel like I'm called to preach, right? I go, oh, another one. Or remember somebody came to us and said, we really feel like we're called to this church. Remember this? No names, no files, right? And we were like, right, okay, brilliant. And they said, but we're not here just to come to the church. We're here to lead it with you and you guys. That's our purpose. That's what God's called us for. And I was like, Jake, you would have told me that.
It's like going to somebody saying, God's told me I'm going to marry you.
I do know what. Like,
okay.
Is that not what you did to me? I'm only joking. But do you know what I mean? But it's like, you kind of look at it and you go, like...
Well, for me...
People get stuck because they make it about them rather than going, actually, my general purpose first is as a son, as a daughter. What comes after? What applies in the family of God to everyone? Start there. You're called to what? You're called to be part of God's family. So don't be a solo pilot outside of the walls of the church. Because Paul write it himself. He said, the church is not peripheral to the world's peripheral to the church. Okay? You're called to bear fruit, good fruit. You're called to serve in the body. You're called to be a good witness. It's like all of that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The facts don't care about your feelings, right? That's part of your purpose. But if you rush past that to try to go, well, my ministry is to preach, people just end up.
I think it's what the focus is. If it's on yourself,
Exactly.
or on how God's going to use you to bless somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think that's what probably, what I'm saying is about what you love. It's about how God can use what you love to do to be a blessing to somebody else. But if it's just about, if it starts with you, then you're starting from the wrong place.
Yeah.
Because it's,
my calling, wasn't it Bill Johnson? Remember years ago we read that thing where Bill Johnson talked about,
heartbeat.
the heartbeat thing, right?
Yeah.
So loads of people come to him and go, Bill, I have a ministry and I want you to help me in my ministry. And and this is Bill Johnson, he's lovely. When you see him, you kind of go, he's kind of cuddly and lovely. You can imagine just him being...
Cuddling Bill.
Do you know what? I probably could. Just a wee cuddle Bill. But, it's like he's cuddly Bill and unbelievable teacher of God's word. But he's sitting across the table from him, he would go, actually, I don't care about your ministry until your heart beats with mine, right? Talking about in the context of his church, then you don't have a ministry here because we have to beat in time.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it's that sense of unity, is like unity and purpose coming together. And that's where I think it's actually, once you're established in the love of God, so then it doesn't actually matter, to be honest, what it looks like. Yeah. Because for everybody, it'll look a bit different, because some people will love working with kids. Some people will love to bake cakes for everybody. Some people will love to sit down and pray with somebody. It's going to look different for everyone else, but it starts with that essence of you're called to love. It's like we love because he first loved us. We've received love from Jesus, and then we pour that out on the people around us. And we get to do that probably through the things that we're good at. But at times it can be things that we're not particularly good at, but we choose to do them anyway. But the underpinning thing is the fact that we understand why we're doing it. We understand that actually when I turn up here early on a Sunday morning and get the heating to work, it's not that I want to spend half an hour sometimes trying to get the boiler on, but it's the fact that I want everyone to come into a warm environment and not be sitting freezing. Yeah. That's love.
No,
As preparing a sermon, praying for somebody, I think it doesn't really matter what the outward thing is. It's a sense of actually, once you've captured God's heart for you, then that's what you want to share with other people. And the brilliant thing is God uses you in all the things that you're good at to do that. But sometimes there's things that you don't particularly enjoy, and God will grow you.
Yeah, I just think for anyone who's listening, going, what's my purpose? Particularly if you're a believer, all right, and you, like, the worst thing you can do is like paralysis by analysis. Do nothing until you have this. The old, I'm just praying about it. Like, could you help us this Sunday? Well, I really need to pray about that. No, you don't. Shut up.
Could you help us on the tea and coffee? I'll come pray about it.
I need to pray about it. No, you really don't need to pray about pouring somebody a cup of tea. You just need to wise up and get past yourself. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I think there's been too much overbalanced the wrong way, because Jesus, was, just we need to round up here. But that thing of if people are going, my purpose matters, of course it does. It'll help you to get over stress, anxiety, make good decisions, motivate you, keep you resilient, get you through the hard times. But don't start with you. I mean, that's what the world does, and the world has not got it worked out. Yeah. There are things today which you can do because it's part of being the family. Like, just think about a normal family. Yeah. There's loads I get to do, even though, like, I don't like putting the shopping away. Drives me to I hate it. It makes me irrationally angry.
Everybody has noticed, because Daddy's always on the loo when the shopping comes in.
Well, do you know what? It's because it's a call to prayer.
Now calls it out.
I know. So
where is he?
Where's he gone? I'm just praying in there while they're putting the shopping away. Do you know that's the truth? But the point is, it's like that specific purpose that you have to preach, to minister through music, is only ever going to make sense whenever, like, your general sense of, like, calling as a son, calling as the church, it has to fit in there. Because that's what Jesus said, wasn't it? That the last thing we talked about in Luke 5 was, when Jesus calls these guys, he doesn't come and say, your ministry is, like, the way we would like it. He just said, I'm going to make you, see, you're fishing, that's brilliant. I'm going to give you a way bigger vision for your life, right? Not that there's anything wrong with fishing, but I'm going to make you fishers of men. He just gave this whole other view. Yeah. And probably that's what we want people to find, isn't it? I think it is. It's that step back and see the big picture. Yeah. Because whenever you get into me and my thing,
That's pretty small if you think about it.
Yeah.
But when you realize I am part of something
Way
so
bigger.
much bigger,
Yeah.
and actually when I cooperate, work together with these people and with what the Lord's saying, I'm going to do something so much greater than I could ever do just trying to make this thing work on my own.
Yeah, I mean, my purpose has got to be, I mean, the bottom line is this, your purpose is always makes much more sense in the context of who God says, what he called you for. Lose yourself in that first, and then I think the specifics become like easier. But we've just had too many people getting that the wrong order, and then not doing anything, or being really light on, you know, some of the really key things, the fundamentals about, you know, turn up, give, you know, have a good attitude. It's like some of this, I think when you do that, then the other bits of the Bible make sense. The Lord will open the doors. He'll make it your path straight, and he'll get you there. Yeah. All right, very good. That's quite good, isn't it? I think for us, probably, like a sense of purpose has probably been the reason why we're sitting here today.
I think that last thing I was going to say is he doesn't actually, the reason that we don't get everything that we want when on the timing that we want is because half the time we're not ready for it.
Aye.
So for the likes of David, he had to have all of those years of almost
lions and bears before he
yes,
that.
And also all of those years of everyone turning against him, things not going right, because it had to strengthen his reliance on the Lord, not on himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's so much in us, you know, for us, our journey with church, we might have wanted it to look different, but would have we have been ready for what we thought?
Might have wanted it to look different.
We probably did.
So quite that for an understatement.
Yeah. But for most of us, when we're thinking, why am I not here yet, God? I thought I should have been further on. I thought by now, actually, it's the Lord's goodness that we're not always walking into those things, because he wants to give us the very best, and he'll get us ready for those things. And that's where I think it's what I said at the beginning, those course corrections that I'll show you this much, but no further. Because actually keep next to me, keep with me, don't stray off. Because actually it might feel like you're going on a detour. It might feel like you're going off in the wrong direction. It might feel like you're never going to get there. But actually, he will get you there at the right time, right place. All those things that we're never going to be able to make ourselves, because we'll just take what we think is the easy road, but probably not going to lead us down the right path.
Brilliant. Okay. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that quick podcast on finding your purpose. It's part of our 10 Reasons Why series. If you haven't got the notes on that, you can email office, it's coming up on the screen, office@exchangechurchbelfast.com, and download our notes for free. And also watch us online, www.exchangechurchbelfast.com, YouTube, Facebook and Insta. We would love to connect with you and help you to find out more about God's purpose for your life.